Kia ora, my name is Robbie and I'm another white man behind a desk, and today we're talking about ACC, the Accident Compensation Corporation. And just like most corporations, it started out as a cool idea and now it mainly watches its bottom line while screwing over the poor. So how did we get here? Why is it like this? Is this too many questions to ask in an introduction? It's time to talk about the ACC. So, first things first, what's an ACC? Well, if you're like me, then it's a bill you get once a year, and then you call the person who sent you the bill and explain how little money you make, and then they apologize and give you back some of your money and sound concerned about how you stay alive. But the ACC also does other things. In the broadest possible terms, ACC is supposed to be New Zealand's no-fault accidental injury compensation scheme. If you get injured and you need support, ACC is supposed to fund that support, no matter where or how your injury happened. In order to understand ACC, it helps to think about the system we had before it existed. Now, to tell that story, I'm going to use Robbie from the Citizen's Handbook, because he has a higher budget.
Once upon a time, if you got injured and you wanted real cash to pay your hospital bills and pay rent while you couldn't go to work, you would have to find someone to blame and sue them in a court of law, which was expensive for everyone involved, and tough for injured people because they had to fight legal battles while they were injured. And if you couldn't find someone to blame, you didn't get anything at all. But sometimes people in government use their power to make life better. The people in the Ministry of Labour did their job and told their minister that the system sucked. And the Minister of Labour did his job and set up a royal commission. And the Royal Commission did their job too. This absolute ledge called Owen Woodhouse ran the Royal Commission and talked to a bunch of smart folks, and then he wrote a report that was like, "Hey everyone, we're just going to invent an entirely new system. It should be illegal to sue for personal damages, and we'll just put money in a big pot. And if you get injured anywhere at any time and you need cash, you'll get it." And politicians listened, and the national government put into place the new system, and Labour expanded it. And pretty soon we had ACC. Nobody asked for it, nobody knew what the solution should be, but there was a problem, and if the right people are in power at the right time, then they can fix problems. And that right person might be you. The end.
And that all sounds great because we wrote it that way, because we only had a minute and we wanted young people to think that good change is possible. And while good change is possible, that is also true of bad change. Now, to be fair, a lot of the things that suck about ACC were never proposed by Woodhouse in the first place. For example, that bill you get once a year, Woodhouse never thought you should get that. To quote the New Zealand Law Society, the Woodhouse report, in pursuit of the principle of community responsibility, recommended that the scheme not be funded by variable levy rates based on assumed risk to earners in different industries. Instead, it suggested a flat levy of a fixed percentage of payroll in the case of employees, or tax assessable income in the case of the self-employed. Furthermore, it suggested that the levy should be collected not by the ACC, but by IRD as part of normal annual tax payment. Put simply, we'd all chip in based on how much money we made through our normal taxes that we don't really notice, not based on how dangerous our job was in a random bill once a year. But there were even bigger aims that Woodhouse had, which the ACC, implemented and tweaked by successive Labour and national governments, has completely failed to achieve. There were 5 principles at the core of the Woodhouse report, which I'm pointing to now. Unless I didn't add the graphic, in which case I'm pointing to nothing. But the number 1 principle, the one at the foundation of everything, the one I've already mentioned, was community responsibility. The key thing was that you wouldn't get help because you could prove that someone else had screwed you over. You would get help just because you needed it. That's why it was called a no-fault scheme. To quote Professor Susan St John from the University of Auckland, in 1967 the architect of ACC, Sir Owen Woodhouse, repudiated the old workers' compensation arrangements that pandered to insurance companies and lined the pockets of lawyers. He envisaged a scheme that would put the needs of the injured centre, foreseeing an eventual expansion of coverage to disability caused by sickness and a better recognition of the vital role that women play in the productive economy. The idea was, and I know this is going to sound pretty crazy, that eventually everyone who needed support would get it. It was a powerful, good, revolutionary idea that we then handed to our political leaders, and they stepped in to say, let me be clear, we will do this by half measures. We promise you that we will sort of half put this into place. We assure you that it will become mean-spirited and we will penny pinch. Getting support will become an uphill battle. Mark my words, we will mess this up. And they kept that promise. Labour and National moved forwards together, hand in hand. Occasionally, National would make a little change and then Labour would change it back. But the important thing was that they were both united in making sure that the ACC never worked the way it was supposed to. God defend New Zealand! When the original Act came into place in 1972, the legislation was clear that ACC had to be fully funded, meaning that all the claims ACC approved had to be balanced with sufficient assets, kind of like private insurance, but compulsory and without any competition. Then, in the 90s, National said, how about we add some competition? And then Labour got back into power and said, no. And everybody thought, okay, good call, Labour. I guess that way we can approve everyone's claims, even if it means we make a loss. We don't have to worry about profit. We can be really generous. And Labour said, no, absolutely not. ACC will watch that money like a hawk. This is the government, okay? We can't just go about giving money away to people who need it, you idiot. And watch that money like a hawk they did. National went on to restrict the definition of an accident in 2010, removing things like self-harm and suicide and reducing the coverage of birth injuries, only covering injuries where there was evidence of a doctor making an error. Now you might be thinking, well, doesn't that go against the fundamental point of a no-fault system if someone has to be at fault for you to get support? To which the National Party said, hey, shut up. Labour then came in and you guessed it, put coverage for birth injuries back into the legislation, thus continuing the never-ending cycle of National doing something, Labour undoing it, and nobody ever addressing any of the core problems. So it's a perfect system. No notes. What a great country. And while National and Labour refuse to overhaul the system, ACC keeps getting worse. In 2014, a report revealed that rather than the 90,000 people ACC claimed were being missed by the system, the number was actually nearer 300,000. Over the years, ACC has reportedly become more restrictive on the claims it accepts, and people are now forced to hire lawyers and medical professionals to argue their case to ACC, just like they were supposed to not have to do anymore because of ACC. In a recent report presented to Parliament by Dr. Warren Forster, he speaks of a woman named Anna who was receiving support for an injury to her foot until it was discovered she had a degenerative condition and the support was cut off. She lost her job and work and income gave her more than 4 times the initial cost of the operation that ACC refused to fund. And arguing your case to ACC is not a fair fight. ACC has a lot more money than you do, and they seem to work pretty hard to not support their clients. According to Forster, ACC frequently calls doctors to pressure them to change their advice so they can stop giving people money. Dr. Huhana Hiki says that the main mistake that people make when they interact with ACC is they assume that the organisation is there to help them get as much support as they can. And you can see why people might make the error of thinking that an organisation initially created to help you might actually want to help you. But apparently, that's not the case. And the result is that polite people, or people who can't afford lawyers and doctors to advocate on their behalf, are screwed over by the system. So who does the system look after? Well, as you'd expect, it's demanding white people like me. To quote Hickey again, most people don't fight ACC. Most of them turn around and just accept the answer is no. And that's part of the problem. ACC has gotten away with it for years. And it's not just limited to demanding white people in general, it's mostly limited to demanding white men. ACC will look after you if you have an accidental injury, but it won't look after you if you have an illness or disability. And according to Forster, carers, teachers, and people who work for government, predominantly women, don't have very high rates of injury, but have very high rates of health-related problems. This, along with good old-fashioned sexism from medical practitioners and ACC employees, has led to our system paying out $1 billion less to women than it does to men. So, rather than expanding to cover those with illnesses or disabilities, ACC has stayed limited to accidental injury and become increasingly hostile to the people it's supposed to serve. We've effectively reverted to a pre-Woodhouse era where you can only really get support if you can hire a good lawyer and make a good case at a time when you probably don't have the money or ability to do that, which is exactly why you went to ACC for help in the first place. And what can we do about it? Well, we need a cross-party consensus to go back to the original reason ACC was invented. Who cares why you need support? Why should that affect the support you receive? What matters is that if you need support, we provide it. We have an obligation to provide you with care, and the burden is on us to do that. We've overhauled systems before. It's time to do it again, and this time we'll get it right. We're not America. We're not beholden to lawyers or special interests. We can fix things. By God, we're New Zealand. There's only 5 of us, and we all want a generous society that functions. So Labour, National, if you want to provide 2 nearly identical options, that's fine. But can they please be options that work? Whew. Got a bit fired up there.